Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me here on Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. As you heard in the intro, Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, we rock and roll for about an hour. There's no rules. I think yesterday we went for like an hour and 7 minutes, something like that. So it all depends. 55 minutes, hour and 5 minutes, somewhere in that zone. We have a good time here on the free show. Hopefully you're taking advantage of the products over at FantasyGuru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of FantasyGuru.com and get signed up for everything. We just launched our basketball and hockey packages, of course, because those seasons are underway. Still sign up for those. You can sign up for the fantasy football seasonal package still if you need some help. The DFS package if you want to get involved there. The wagering package if you want to get involved there. You can bundle them all together. You can get the VIP Platinum package, which gets you everything all year round that we do. Subscribe tab in the top right corner at FantasyGuru.com. Send a note to our support team, support@FantasyGuru.com. support@FantasyGuru.com if you have any questions. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FG. I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman hosts here on Wednesdays. It is a Friday, so we're going to talk some football with Russell Clay. He joins us every Friday. He'll join us in about a half an hour here to talk over, as you can see there on the screen, some storylines. What happened to C.J. Stroud? What should we be thinking about Rashod Bateman and Zay Flowers? Chris Olave, Jakobi Meyers. What's going on with the Bucs wide receivers? Maybe a couple of streaming options at the tight end spot. Maybe he just updated the Dynasty Rankings over at FG. We'll talk to him a little bit about that. So we'll join with him in about a half hour. Before we get to that point of the show, we'll break down what happened with the Vikings and Rams last night, kind of give my thoughts on that whole thing and how it played out, plus a bunch of updates there you can see on players that are basically dealing with injuries, including one guy who got shot, and no one knew about it for days. Got some thoughts on how they report things in the NFL? We'll talk about that a little bit in the case of Josh Reynolds. Again, I'm Ray Flowers, Twitter, X, Instagram, all the places at the Ray Flowers if you want to find a little bit more information there. And, of course, you can always send me the questions in there every day at FantasyGuru.com in the Discord. Remember, Sundays, I do not answer questions in Discord. I do not answer questions on my own account. On Sunday mornings, it's 10 to 1 Eastern Standard Time at SiriusXM Fantasy. That 3-hour time period at SiriusXM Fantasy, only place you're going to get my advice because it's the only place I'm looking on Sunday mornings. So check it out there if that's something you need a little bit of a help on Sunday morning. By the way, does anyone like this? My old 49ers? Like the old school colors? Look at that. This is, I think, I've got an old Tom Rathman jersey. And I've also got this. And that's about it. Like, I don't have too much Niner stuff anymore. This is actually my dad's. So this thing is actually 15 years old. But yeah, kind of cool, right? The old colors. Go Niners. Anyway, I don't normally wear things on the show here, but what the hell? It was kind of cold this morning, so I threw it on. All right, let's get into this. What happened last night? Well, we had a football game last night, Thursday Night Football, and it was a pretty good game. Penalty at the end that wasn't called. Okay. Rams 30-20 over the Vikings. Rams moved to 3-4 and suddenly are involved in the NFC West because that division struggled for victories. The Vikings fall to 5-2. Let's go through some of the main storylines. And you can see it there on the screen. And, I want to start with the Puka Nacua situation. Let's go through it here on the show. Sometimes you make the right decision and the results are bad. Sometimes you make the wrong decision and the results are good. So we have to be very clear about, again, sometimes you do the right thing and it doesn't work. Sometimes you do the wrong thing and it works. Okay, so let's keep that in mind here as we have this discussion. Puka Nacua questions yesterday. Let's go through the Puka Nacua timeline, right? Plays in week 1, hurts his knee, supposed to miss 4 weeks. They're pretty confident it's going to be shorter term. Then we hear it's going to be longer term. Okay. Then they have this 21 day window, right, with players. Like we saw with TJ Hockenson on the other side. His window's been open for weeks now. He hasn't been activated. Didn't play last night. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So they open up the 21-day window with Puka Nacua. And 2 or 3 days later, he's active? Like, that's really fast. And that's not traditionally what we see. So that was a little bit strange. Secondly, we heard from all the reports that while we think Puka Nacua's got a chance to play tonight, the Rams are going to test him out pregame to see if he's even going to be active. So this was not a guarantee scenario that he was going to play. Okay, if the team is basically saying we need to see the guy in pregame, next step, we heard from all those sources that even if he does play, he's not going to see his full allotment of snaps. Okay. We do know that Cooper Kupp for sure is returning. We know that. We got that information a while ago. So we got in the case of Puka Nacua, a guy who rather quickly was activated kind of out of nowhere. A guy that all the reports suggested wasn't going to play a full complement of snaps. In an offense that, again, without Kupp and Puka, of course, it struggled, but in a Rams offense that has been Kyren Williams or bust, they have done nothing through the air for weeks. Nothing through the air for weeks. And they're going into a difficult matchup with Minnesota, which has got one of the better defenses in football. So why is it that I got question after question after question? Why were we all getting question after question after question about playing Puka Nacua? No one's on bye this week. It's not 4 teams on bye, 6 teams on. No one's on bye. Why were you all trying to force Puka Nacua into your lineup? Now, in the end, he catches 7 passes for 106 yards. Okay, so if you started him, it was a win. So good for you if you started him again. I think it was absolutely the wrong decision. Of all the questions I was asked yesterday, the only time I said to play Puka was when someone said Sterling Shepard or Puka Nacua, and I said, go Puka. I think every other time I said, nah. Why did you all want to force him into your lineup? I just laid out for 5 minutes here all the concerns with Puka Nacua. Why? As we said on the show yesterday, and as we say all the time, you don't get bonus points for difficulty. I just, for the life of me, don't understand it. Now, Puka Nacua goes out there and beyond the numbers, which again, if you played him, you got the win. He played 40 of 71 snaps. So, he's out there more than half the time, but Demarcus Robinson had 60 snaps. So he was limited, was Puka Nacua. He ran 22 routes and had 9 targets. It was the highest target rate per route run of his career. And this is a guy who's getting double-digit targets frequently. So for some reason, the Rams put him out there, didn't play him that much, but every time he was on the field, they threw him the ball, basically. So again, I'm confused. So again, you got the win if you played him. As I said all yesterday, and as I'm reiterating here, it was the wrong decision in my opinion. But if you played him, you got the win. Should you have played Cooper Kupp? Yeah, I was totally in on playing Cooper Kupp. Interestingly enough, Cooper Kupp plays the game yesterday, and he had a drop, but he only played 2 more snaps and only ran 5 more routes than Puka. Like, we were all basically led to believe that he's perfectly healthy and he's going to play a full complement of snaps. He didn't play a full complement of snaps. He had 5 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown, so it was a win if you played him too. Totally win him in the fantasy space, right? The team Sean McVay basically said they're not going to trade him. Now, again, his name's been floated out there. We had the discussion on this show and in Discord. What did the Rams do this week? Are they looking to trade Puka? So they're going to, Kupp, so they're going to feature him. Are they looking to trade him? So they're going to be concerned about playing him. In the end, 16 PPR points, which was just behind Puka Nacua. They're basically the same guy last night. Both same amount of snaps, same amount of routes, same amount of targets, all that kind of stuff. So Cooper Kupp, we anticipate that he stays with the Rams moving forward. Now, you take the number 1 and number 2 away from any coach, any quarterback in football, of course, and you run into some problems. And Matthew Stafford has run into some problems. And Matthew Stafford, like I said, the Rams have not been able to pass the ball for weeks. Get back these 2 guys, and guess what? Even against the Vikings defense is really good. Matthew Stafford shreds them. 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, flinging the ball down here, up here, over here, behind the back. He didn't go behind the back. But he played a good football game. He produced excellent numbers. And now all of a sudden, the Rams think they can win the NFC West. Now, again, they're 3-4 and the division's messy. So we'll see how this plays out. The season's not even half over yet. But it sounds like the Rams, who 24 hours ago were kind of in sell mode, may not be now. Matthew Stafford, what do we have Stafford ranked this week? I want to say we had him in the 20. I had him 17th. Obviously, he's going to end up way better than 17th. He threw 4 touchdown passes. I had him ranked 17th because of the returns of Puka and Kupp. And I think it's very reasonable to think that Stafford is now a high-end quarterback too, with the potential, as we saw last night, to be QB1. With Kupp and Nacua on the field, it's a massive difference to the offense of the Rams. Now, interestingly enough, if we go to the next guy, Kyren Williams, gets Kupp and Nakua back, and oddly scores a receiving touchdown. Okay. And oddly has 28 touches, which is a season high. This guy who touches the ball 20 times every week gets back Nakua and Kupp, who see 17 targets, and Kyren Williams still gets 28 touches. And this is what this is with the Rams. It's the pyramid, man. Like we talk about it with some of these teams. Some teams, like the Packers, there's 47 guys that catch passes. With the Rams, it's 2 guys that catch passes and 1 guy that carries the ball. That's it. Colby Parkinson vanished. He had 2 targets last night. Even though Demarcus Robinson scored 2 touchdowns, he only had 3 targets. Tutu Atwell, puff of smoke, he's gone. Tyler Johnson only was on the field because Jordan Whittington's down with the shoulder injury. So Parkinson, if any of you have been using him as a tight end, very difficult to feel confident about using him moving forward because, again, we're going to be seeing upwards of 20 targets, maybe more a week between the 2 wide receivers. So it's just, unless they're throwing it 40 times a week, it's going to be very tough for Parkinson to be anything other than just a floor guy. There's no ceiling with Kobe Parker anymore. Not that there ever really was. But now even the floor is lower than expected. So that's kind of what we got with the Rams side of things at this moment. Let's go to the other side of things. The Vikings, again, lost this football game. They fall to 5-2. Disappointing effort there. Sam Darnold is really interesting. Sam Darnold has... let's keep in the order I have on the list here. I got really excited. Let's get ahead of myself. Let's go to Justin Jefferson first. Justin Jefferson, and we talked about this, was it yesterday? I think it was, with Tyler Beaker. If you missed this show, you can always catch him on demand. Go to fantasyguru.com, click the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page at FG. You can go to your podcast network, type in Fantasy Sports Daily. I love how I do this, right? Like you don't know what typing is. Type in Fantasy Sports Daily, and you can find us on your podcast network. You can follow us live. You can ask questions live at YouTube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. You can ask us questions there. We'll get to those throughout the show. You can also watch us live, Twitter X @FantasyGuru site. Justin Jefferson is, as we talked about yesterday with Tyler Beaker, his floor has been tremendous. And it should be. He's one of the best receivers in football. He's a first-round draft pick. The ceiling, last night, 8 catches for 115 yards. Who's going to complain about that? Nobody. But it's only his second game of 100 yards. And, we continue to look at this team, and we talked about this directly, Tyler and I, the lack of volume. And I brought up, look, Sam Darnold throws it 28 times a week. It was 25 last night. Tyler talked about how all the plays run and all that. The Vikings need to be uber efficient because they're right at the bottom of the league in terms of plays run. And we saw this play out again last night. Justin Jefferson, 8 catches for 115 yards. It's kind of the ceiling for him at this point. Why? Because Sam Darnold threw 25 passes. Jefferson had 35% target rate last night, which is a big number. But he only had 9 targets. That's just all he's going to get if Sam Darnold's throwing the ball 25 times. And we haven't seen, we've seen these, consistent 15, 18-point weeks from Jefferson. But where is the 8, 115 in the touchdown? Let's pull him up directly here before I talk out my rear end. There's Justin Jefferson, the magic of the internet. So his PPR points, 16, 23, 20, 20, 15, 21, 20. No one's going to complain by that. But again, he has 1 game this year with 100 yards and a touchdown. 1. He only has 2 games this year with 100 yards. And last night, the 8 catches, that's the first time he got 8 catches all year. So start him up, fire him up. Everything's fine. It just would be nice if we had some more volume. And that leads into this next piece. TJ Hockenson didn't play again. Okay. And we've been talking, I know that there are people that knew that Hockenson was going to play this week, and they traded their other tight end. Hockenson didn't play. And that window for him, that 21-day window, okay, he's going to have to play next week or it's over for him. Now, we fully anticipate him being active for the next game for the Vikings. But, again, Puka took 2 days, and Hawkinson's going to take 3 weeks. When Hockenson comes back, let's assume it's 8 or 9 targets for Jefferson a week. Let's assume it's 5 to 7 targets for Hockenson. There's no meat on the bone for anyone left in this team. And even last night with Hockenson not out there, we saw 2 targets to Munt and 2 targets to Oliver. Okay, and again, let's say it's 6 or 7 to Hockenson. Okay. there's nothing left. It's a couple of passes thrown to Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Only 2 last night. That could easily be 4 or 5, right? Addison had 3 targets. Naylor had 4 targets. Sherfield had 1 target. That's it. So the wide receivers 2, 3, and 4 for this team had 8 targets. Jordan Addison is, I hate to say this, but at this point in time, he's not a must-hold. He's not. Now, Sherfield played 3 snaps and had a touchdown. Thanks for that. That was real helpful, right? Naylor's around. He actually had more targets than Addison last night. But the fact is, Addison, I don't think, has caught more than 3 passes all year. And with the incoming return of Hockenson and the lack of 30 pass efforts from this Vikings team, Addison is, Now, obviously, on the other side, if you drop Addison and Justin Jefferson blows his knee out, so that you run that risk. But right now, this is a very stagnant offense with the Vikings, and it's a little bit concerning. Again, it is what it is, I guess, at this point, as they fell to 5-2, losing that game 30-20. Let's talk a little bit about some broad picture items before we move on to talking to Russell Clay, a bunch of topics. To him, I'm looking at some of the comments to see. Hello, everyone. Hello, Sean, Tony, Henry, everybody. Angela says the blind ref should be fired. There's always a reason to fire a ref, right? It doesn't have to be because they're blind. Always something here. All right. Let's move on to kind of the other news and notes. All right. We're answering questions. We answer questions here on the show. Again, you can leave them. We'll talk later in the show about them. We answer questions over at fantasyguru.com all day in Discord. A lot of people, I know, and again, we talk about this every week. I get it. You want to get your question answered. Sometimes you ask your question, it doesn't get answered. I totally understand the bind you can be in here. But the Thursday night, Friday morning questions about injured players, and, keep hearing the questions about Travis Etienne. Actually, they're more about Bigsby than Etienne. Right now, at 9:15 in the morning on Friday, we're hearing that Travis Etienne, who's got that hamstring injury, is going to be a game-time decision. Maybe we get more information today and it's clear. Maybe we get more information tomorrow. Maybe we don't. Maybe it just what we know now is what we know now, and it's going down to game time with Etienne. I don't think there's an appetite for most people to play Etienne. I think most people think it's Bigsby's backfield, as we've discussed here on the show. We don't think that that's the case. I think that this is a 1A, 1B scenario with Bigsby and Etienne. I don't think that Etienne returns when healthy, and maybe the first game is different. I don't think Etienne returns and gets 4 touches and plays 18 snaps. I don't think that. I think it's a 1A, 1B thing. So right now, if you're going with the Tank Bigsby start, we just don't know what's happening with Etienne until we're clear on what happens with Etienne. It's very difficult to project out what some reasonable expectations are for Bigsby. If I check the rankings at fantasyguru.com right now, let's look at this. Right now, we got Tank Bigsby at running back 25, which I think is fair. But if Etienne is back, so basically Bigsby should be looked at as kind of a flex option. I think that's fair at this point of the week. But again, we need some more information there. And then we have a slew of information about the 49ers. And this is obviously something to watch very closely. We know Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. Okay, here's what we got. There continues to be a growing line of thought that Christian McCaffrey is going to be back for the Niners in Week 10. Not going to play this week. They got the bye next week. He'll be back in Week 10. Report after report after report, day after day continues to say this. So I think it's fair at this point to assume that's going to happen. I see people making moves to add CMC. I see people trading CMC, people asking what are the thoughts of CMC, like all these things. Let's be very clear about this. No one knows what to expect from Christian McCaffrey. We don't know if he's going to play the rest of the season. We don't know for sure he's playing in Week 10. We don't know that he's going to be a top 3 running back the rest of the way. We don't know he's going to get 20 touches the rest of the way. We don't know. Okay, remember, we all know how the situation evolved, right? We were all expecting him to play in Week 1. All right. Then he's going to Germany and he's not here, and it's one Achilles. Then we hear it's both Achilles. So I understand everyone trying to gain the edge. You always try to gain an edge. I totally get that line of thought. But when you say, hey, Ray, hey, Jeff, hey, Ted, hey, Russell, I'm going to make this trade for CMC. What do you think? We're all just guessing. I can give you my educated guess. The guys on staff at Fantasy Guru give you their educated guess because you're asking, but we're all guessing. None of us know. What I know is that you can't drop Jordan Mason, and I'd still be very cautious of dropping Garendo. Because, who's to say that McCaffrey doesn't go out there in Week 10 and just look like a regular guy? Is he going to have the burst that separates him from the other? I don't know. And remember, the line between McCaffrey and stardom, and almost every other running back in the football, is it's about like that. It's very close. So I keep all the Niners backs. Hope that McCaffrey is back. As I noted in my Coffin Corner piece, it's available today. It just went up this morning over at fantasyguru.com. Jordan Mason's actually running for more yards a game this year than Christian McCaffrey did last year. Just pointing that out. So that's kind of where we're at in the backfield. Now, in terms of pass catchers for the Niners, Deebo Samuel's got the wrist issue. Seems to be less of a concern right now than his health. He was in the hospital for fluid on his lungs. They released him. He returned to practice yesterday. He was limited. He'll probably get a limited tag again today. He is definitely trending toward playing this weekend. That's great news for the Niners, who desperately need him. In the past, when Brandon Ayuk has missed games, Deebo Samuel is the offense. Okay. Remember, as great as Mason is on the ground, Mason's not a ball catcher. We have Ayuk out. We have George Kittle, who we'll talk about in a second. He's beat up. We've got Jauan Jennings. He's beat up. Deebo Samuel, the Niners want to have him touch the ball 10 times this week, plus. Maybe it's 3 or 4 carries. Maybe it's 10 targets. They want/need him to touch the ball 10 times a week. Can he do it? As we, again, here on Friday morning, it looks like he's got a chance. We'll continue to follow this story very closely. If Deebo Samuel is active, he is in your lineup. If he's active, he's in your lineup. That's how I'm playing it, because his role in this offense needs to be pronounced, and the Niners must win this football game. They've let 2 games they should have won slip away. Their spot in the standings, they're very precarious. They've got to win this football game. They need Deebo Samuel. Now, George Kittle's got a foot issue. He returned to practice on Thursday. He was limited as well, but this is really good news. The expectation, for what that is worth, amongst the beat writers all along is that Kittle was going to play, right? That, we're not certain about Samuel to some degree. We're not certain about Jauan Jennings to some degree, but we believe Kittle's going to play. The limited practice yesterday, he's got the foot issue. He's going to play. You fire him up as a tight end 1. We know that. That's how it goes with George Kittle. 4 catches for 40 yards every week. He's actually giving us the floor this year too. But George Kittle appears in line to be a tight end 1 this week. Now, Jauan Jennings is very interesting because while Kittle and Deebo got unlimited work, Jauan Jennings still didn't with that hip. He didn't take any practice reps in week 7. He hasn't taken any practice reps in week 8. Now, he could return to practice today, get him limited. We could get a further update on Jennings, but that obviously is something to watch because Jennings very likely is going to be looking at 6 to 8 targets a week moving forward. He's going to be in the wide receiver 3 flex conversation moving forward. Obviously, that changes. He could even go higher than that if Deebo Samuel is out, if George Kittle is limited. So we need to watch what we hear today very closely with Jennings. Again, right now, he's flex-ish option, but we need to see him on the field. That hip of his is obviously giving him a little bit of trouble. On the side of things with the Dolphins, Puka Nacua, right before the show started, they announced he's going to play this week. We all anticipated that being the case. It's very likely, if not probable, that Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill both play this weekend. But to be fair, Jaylen Waddle got on the limited practice yesterday. He's got a quad issue. It's a couple limited practices. There's not a lot of concern coming out of Miami right now that Waddle's not going to play this weekend, but it is something to keep an eye on, the quad issue. Fully expect him to practice in some form on Friday. If that's the case, he should be good to go. Tyreek Hill was limited with the foot injury. He seems to be fine. We don't know really what's going on here. So I think his situation is a little more precarious at the moment than Waddle's. Friday is going to be very important, so we'll continue to follow these reports. Over at fantasyguru.com, by the way, Justin Fensterman does the injury report, so that's always posted. Jeff Mann's got the Elite Sports Show, which is Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 Eastern Time on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm on with Jeff every Wednesday. So, he'll have updates all throughout his show. Phil Backert will blast through all the injury reports at the top of every hour. We'll obviously be answering questions in Discord. So we'll get a chance to react to the news with the Dolphins, whatever it might be. It does look like Tyreek Hill. I'm expecting him to play at this point, but it's something to keep an eye on. Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving's got a toe issue. He was trending in the right direction, we heard. He actually returned to practice. We got an update right before the show started today. He was back at practice today. So I guess if you have Irving, you can breathe a sigh of relief. It certainly looks like he's going to play this weekend. Same time, Irving, White, Tucker. Yeah, 3 guys. So, yeah. as we discussed last week, despite White scoring twice, and I think Irving got a touchdown as a receiver, right? This is a situation I'd really try to avoid if possible. 3 guys is just death. It's just death. And, maybe Tucker recedes to the point where he's, playing 8 snaps and getting 3 touches, and then it's less of a concern. But at this point in time, it's a little bit concerning. But Irving is moving in the right direction. For those of you thinking you might use him as a flex option, remember, no one's on bye this week. So be cautious with playing guys in 3-headed backfields. Now, tight end spot. Will Dissly, who blew up 8 catches last week, and a lot of people added him off the waiver wire because, as we talked about all preseason at FG, the Chargers were always going to feature. They were going to heavily involve the tight end. We thought it was Hayden Hurst. It has not been Hayden Hurst. He's injured. The injury allows Will Dissly, who's the better blocker, to become part of the offense as a pass catcher. We saw Smart, and they threw 11, 12 passes to the tight end last week. Will Dissly, okay. Dissly's got a shoulder issue. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He didn't practice on Thursday. Maybe this is just safety here because Hayden Hurst is dealing with things, and they know how important Dissly is to the offense because of his ability to block. And as we saw, he can catch a pass too. But this is one of those scenarios we got to watch practices closely because if he doesn't practice again today, so keep an eye on what's going on with Will Dissly. Taysom Hill was upgraded to full, and there was a question in Discord, hey, is it crazy to add Taysom Hill this week at the tight end spot? Not crazy at all. Spencer Rattler's going to start for this team. The team is struggling. The offensive line is beat up. Chris Olave should play, but he's coming back off a head injury. Alvin Kamara should play, but he's got the hand issue. Could this be a scenario where Taysom Hill is used all over the place, where he's under center, right? He's not playing tight end because, again, he's not a tight end, but he's actually under center. He's in the backfield. He's under center. He's running routes. Yeah, it could be. The rib issue, it's cost him weeks. But there is a need, I think, on this Saints offense to help diversify the offense, to give some support to Rattler. And if Taysom Hill gets another full practice today, which he likely will, he is definitely in the conversation as a streaming option at the tight end spot. And again, he's not a tight end. It's cheating. But hey, man, it is what it is. Okay. Josh Reynolds. You probably heard this story by now, right? Josh Reynolds was shot after leaving a strip club on Friday. No, not this morning. Last Friday. So an NFL player got shot, and it took 5+ days for it to be reported. Now, Reynolds is okay. That's the number one storyline. He's okay. He's on the injured reserve list with a finger injury, but the shooting, he's okay. So, and we haven't heard yet that there's much concern that he couldn't return in a couple of weeks. So it appears that the shooting piece of this was very limited. But still, how does an NFL player get shot and no one reports it? Like, we complain all the time about, oh, we didn't know Deebo Samuel was ill, or we didn't know so-and-so was, they said he was fine. He, Juju Smith-Schuster said he was fine. He played 7 snaps. Okay. This dude was shot. There's police reports. There's hospital reports. Anytime someone gets shot, the hospital's got to report it to the police. Back in the day, reporters used to follow the police blotter. Not a single person that follows the Broncos follows the police blotter? Really? No one's task is to spend 5 minutes every day in the morning to read the police blotter from the night before? Again, wild situation that a guy gets shot and no one knows about it for a week. I don't know if you're injured. By the way, I don't know if you're injured if you should be going to strip clubs and getting shot at 2:45 in the morning either. But I guess that's another thing. I'm not a pro athlete, but I don't know. We'll bring up our next guy, Russell Clay. I don't know if he's a big. I see him up there, so let's bring him in right now. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. I see a little smile on his face. I can tell he really wants to talk about a strip club. Russell, by the way, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ray. How's it going?
It's going all right. We got the whole shooting with Josh Reynolds that we weren't planning on talking about here, but look at you changing the background, McVay. Hey, you're the two best looking guys in football right there on the screen. And I didn't mean me. I meant you and Sean McVay.
This man
yeah,
continues to amaze me.
Okay. We'll talk about him in a second.
Yes.
Are you a strip club guy? 1. 2, if you were a strip club guy and you're on the injured list, would you be out at 2:45 in the morning at a strip club? And 3, how bad is it that no one knew he got shot for like 5 days?
I have partake in a few times in my life.
Okay.
I would not say I don't think the hype matches I don't think the hype matches what it is.
Right.
But in terms of all that, this is my first of hearing all this.
Okay.
Not good, Josh. So not good. Glad it's not Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, right. Oh, and by the way, Aaron Rodgers is going to play this week. Ian Rappaport gracing us with that report. Like, duh. Like, come on. Like, seriously, at some point, I know at FG we hit on Aaron Rodgers a lot, Russell, but at some point, people got to see it, right? Like,
Yeah.
the national media is in love with Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers is constantly doing things to maintain that status as the number one guy. It's just sickening. Of course he's going to play.
For a long time, I liked Aaron Rodgers. I loved the Packers growing up. I mean, Brett Favre was such a symbol, and he was supposed to fill in, and he was great. And then the last 5 years have been not anything we wanted.
Not at all. Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. He joins us every Friday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. You mentioned you love Sean McVay. The Rams won the football game 30-20 last night. I kind of broke it down and gave my thoughts. Why do you love Sean McVay, and what from the game last night stood out to you the most?
I don't know that I love Sean McVay. He's just humbled me. He's humbled me. Whatever he does, he brings Puka Nacua off IR, and it is like this really strange start sit. And it's like, oh no, it's Sean McVay. He's just going to give him 10 targets, and he's going to have 100 yards his first week back. Kyren Williams going to crush. Old Matthew Stafford's going to crush all these guys. He just brings them in. Everything's fine. So whatever he does, I'm in.
By the way, I said basically that anyone starting Puka yesterday was making it harder than it should have been. What were you telling people before the game yesterday with Puka Nacua?
In a desperation situation, great. You have yourself a starter. But historically, based on all the guys we've seen over the last 4 years get activated off this new IR, the odds are not high. I mean, that you're playing a full plate of snaps the first time back. So more frustration for us. And then we have, other teams starting to resemble college football, Ray, not in the good ways.
Yeah, by the way, you write about college football for us over at fantasyguru.com. What's that look like for you over the next 24 hours here, Russell?
Yeah, so we it's much more last minute because this is college football. This is not NFL. The Mike Beard and all the guys over there do a great job of updating us and getting that last minute info. But we really don't know sometimes until 25 minutes before. Like they get the video of the warm-ups. They aren't required to go through all the hoops. Kyle Shanahan would love college football because he just wouldn't say anything, but it is fun. And yeah, it's especially this time of year, we actually know these college depth charts, and it's really starting to heat up.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Let's talk some NFL broad picture things. CJ Stroud was the golden boy last year. He's no one's golden boy this year. Last week was awful. He didn't even throw for 90 yards. There's reasons for it, but still, he threw for 86 yards. Where are we at with Stroud right now moving forward? Because, again, everyone's Jayden Daniels now. They didn't forget that C.J. Stroud plays in the NFL, and he's coming off an absolutely horrible statistical game last week.
It's funny how quickly everyone moves on to the new guy, right? C.J. Stroud was the belle of the ball all last year. I think this is a Nico Collins thing. I really do. Stroud is a great young quarterback, and when he's forced to throw, tends to be really good. However, we saw last week, Stephon Diggs is not that guy anymore. And with how impactful Nico Collins was early in the year, losing that, we have Tank Dell, which I respect him out there running around at 112 pounds, but he's not really going to replace anything Nico's doing. So easier matchups too. I mean, that was a brutal matchup on the road against Green Bay. He's going to be fine. But Jayden Daniels, the thing we all looked at this offseason and said, oh, this is probably going to be great, except for the fact that he's very thin and now he's hurt. So Stroud, slow and steady. They are going to focus on the running game with Joe Mixon. But overall, very bright future still. No concerns.
On Twitter X, you can follow Russell at Russell J. Clay. And I love the fact he said 112 pounds because I'm pretty sure he tweeted out 112 pounds for Tank Dell. Great consistency there, Russell. So good work.
Yes.
Good work.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other receivers, one of whom is really small with the Ravens, and that's Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is, there's no guy in football who's more up and down, and it's not him, right? It's the offense. It's what week are they going to throw it 38 times? Which week are they going to throw it 18 times with the Ravens? Which week are they going to throw to the backup tight end? All that kind of stuff. He's all over the place. In total, he's fine, but he's all over the place on a weekly basis. So any reason to think that is going to change at all moving forward? And secondly, what are your thoughts on Rashod Bateman, who all of a sudden is trending and all this? Bateman, I know we had 4 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown, looks great, but he's only seen 4 targets in each of the last 2 weeks. Like, there's no volume there for him either. So talk to us specifically about these 2 pass catchers with the Ravens.
Yeah, there's room to be excited about Rashod Bateman, the player, and also exercise caution as you're discussing, because this offense is too good to have one guy focused on. So when we look at, say, Flowers, a lot of his production last year came on the running game isn't working. Mark Andrews is banged up. Rashod Bateman is being early career Rashod Bateman. We need that volume. Now we have 2 30-yard plays and they're in for a touchdown. And this is a historic Ravens offense. So Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are awesome. Unfortunately, they don't really need the passing game that much this year. So that's the real issue here. And it's a great thing for that offense, but Zay Flowers himself is not the guy we drafted. He is a wide receiver 3 flex. And, for those of you slotting him into your fantasy lineups, that feeling you have is real because week to week, they could just not need him. So it's the opposite of a bad team that doesn't have much going and a terrible quarterback. They got too much going, and they got Derrick Henry, who for narrative purposes in that locker room, they're going to try to, pour it on. So
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. What about Chris Olave? Spencer Rattler's the quarterback this week. So again, until Derek Carr comes back, there's that concern. Chris Olave's, missed some time with the head injury. I think people are really concerned about the Saints offense, the offensive line, the injury to Kamara, the loss of Carr. I get the sense that people forgotten that Chris Olave is a 1,000-yard receiver. What do you think about him moving forward? A lot of moving parts, but is he someone that you're holding on to, trying to acquire in the fantasy space, or is Olave someone you're concerned about?
Dynasty wise, this is a great time. And it's so funny to see our Discord, because there's a constant stream of, I want to trade this guy. Like 2 weeks ago, it was Bijan, right? And Breece Hall, everyone wanted to trade them, or people were trading for them in our Discord. And this week I've seen a few Chris Olaves. I've seen a few Zay Flowers. I've seen a few others as well. This is not the time to trade Chris Olave. Now, in a redraft league, I think we kind of might be toast here. This is a year from hell for the Saints. And what have they lost? 5 straight? Their defense has fallen apart. They gave Alvin Kamara an extension instead of going for the full. Let's go for the full rebuild, guys. It's over. They're
not doing that. They're just going to keep pushing. They're going to keep being over the cap every year and somehow figuring out how to get 9 cents.
It's a wrap, Ray. This was a wrap 4 years ago. They bring in Derek Carr. Now he's hurt. They got
Taysom Hill, at least.
What's that?
They got Taysom Hill, so everything's okay.
So it is what it is, but not looking good for Olave this year. I can certainly agree with that.
What about Jakobi Meyers? Let's look at him this year. Okay, let's not talk Dynasty. Let's talk just 2024, redraft league. Jakobi Meyers trending toward returning to action this week. We'll see if that's indeed the case with the ankle injury. I'm shocked to see Jakobi Meyers, people saying he's on the waiver wire, or people saying I want to drop Jakobi Meyers. And, I don't know how, just in theory, you don't want the number 1 wide receiver on an NFL team. And Meyers is clearly the number 1 wide receiver on the Raiders club.
Yeah.
5 catches, 50 yards. Aren't we getting that every week once he returns? Or am I reading this situation completely wrong, Russell?
Jakobi Brissett was awesome in New England, and he suffers from, I don't know what this disease is, Ray, but he was a quarterback turned wide receiver in college, didn't get drafted, and has come into the league, worked his way up after a few years. And these types of guys are just never going to get that appeal to the masses. But I totally agree. Davante Adams gone. And hell, last year in 2023, there were times where Davante Adams was being outproduced by Meyers, even when they were both in the lineup. So yeah, if they continue to go with Minshew, he's going to throw 3 picks a week, but PPR wise, I'm in. So I like this call. That's someone we should be thinking about.
Russell, what about the situation with the Buccaneers? Baker Mayfield says he's fully confident, which is a lie. Because let's be honest, he lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin's done for the year. Evans, it sounds like, is out for weeks now. We've all kind of given our thoughts here on the show. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts. Is it McMillan? Is it Palmer? Is it Otten? Like, what are you seeing with the pass catchers here for at least the next couple of weeks until Evans returns?
They are a little more prepared than previous years to sustain something like this, but I don't know many teams that can lose their top 2 weapons and just be fine. Do I think the volume is going to be there fantasy wise? Potentially. Their defense has started to give way of late, so that's good for the offense. But man, Jalen McMillan is a great piece. He's a great piece. He's more like a Bishop, whereas Mike Evans is going to be one of your main pieces here. That is not a 1-for-1 replacement. McMillan is a pure deep threat. Really, they drafted him 3rd round. I really do think he is a 3rd wide receiver in an NFL offense.
Okay.
Small guy, can produce. Now, if he's put in that number 1 role, he could have some good games. But if he starts getting Mike Evans treatment, I mean, that's just not. There's just nothing that's going to happen there. So I do like McMillan flex wise, wide receiver 3 wise in fantasy football, but yeah, we're going to have to lean on everyone doing their matchup breakdowns and stuff on the site. I'm going to have to check out that going forward because that's going to matter.
Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. Join us every Friday. Hockenson didn't play last night, wasn't activated again. Looks like Dallas Goedert's out again. Tight end position continues to be a mess. Do you have a name or two that you're looking at this week that might be able to tide some folks over? Will Dissly, who we talked about earlier in the show, a lot of people added him after last week. He's got the shoulder. We don't know if he's going to play. Tight end position's not getting much better. Anyone this week that you've honed your sights in on, and this might be a guy that someone could pick up who's on waiver wires around the country?
So Cade Otton was the number 1 guy as soon as those guys went down. He's been great regardless. Here's his targets last 5 games: 8, 9, 4, 6, 10. And that is with Godwin and Evans mostly healthy. Mm-hmm. Now they may just be a worse offense, but he's a guy. He was probably on your waiver wire until maybe this week. So if you're looking late in the week, Conklin's been all right. Noah Fant, guys like that. Even Jonnu with Tua back. Those are some guys I'd look at, but Hunter Henry was a guy a few weeks ago. Right. Njoku was a guy a few weeks ago. Right. These guys are kind of gone now. Hopefully you have, maybe someone drop Mark Andrews, but hopefully you just have Brock Bowers, Ray. And then you don't have to
right? Problem solved. I have him in one league. It's the Elite Listener League, so it's got one league. There you go. Jonnu Smith, we talked about this earlier too. There's the quad issue for Waddle. There's the toe issue, foot issue, whatever it is for Hill. We got the news this morning that Tua is going to play this weekend officially. If everyone's active, right? You mentioned Jonnu Smith. I mean, is he like 6'8", 10 point PPR kind of guy? Like, can he be a consistent threat? He has obviously come on of late.
So last 2 games, he's got 11 and 22 points, 8 and 7 targets. Mike McDaniel, if there's anything he's done right this entire year, it's the last 2 weeks using Jonnu Smith the way he has. So shout out to him. been a gnarly year, but that is the one thing they did right. So even with a new quarterback, you do get the read that they're going to continue to go back to that as at least a second or third option. You mentioned Waddle, and then I assume they're going to try to get Tyreek Hill going, but he's laughing on the sideline with no catches. So I don't know how much they care this year. I think they've had their fun. So we'll see.
Him and Waddle both were on the bench laughing at it's like, bro, you guys didn't get a target. Like someone, I don't say throw a helmet, but let's go. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. You're our Dynasty guy. For those people that don't know, you cover the Dynasty stuff over at fantasyguru.com. And you recently updated the rankings. How often do you update the rankings for the Dynasty?
Every Wednesday we update the rankings and we go through. And, in the off season, it's probably 5 to 10 guys. A few weeks ago, it was, 20 to 30 guys. Just depends on the week, injuries and all that good stuff. But try to keep you up to date on what's going on there. We even had a few college guys here and there. So
oh, look at that. Nice.
Keep out for that.
Really proactive. Yeah. In the latest update, were there a guy or two that went up or went down like significantly?
Yeah.
I mean, you're always going to have a little bit, but did anyone shoot up or anyone fall off in the latest update over at FG?
Yeah, it was not a good one, Ray. This was a bad update. Sometimes there's like really optimistic weeks. I do laugh. And then this week it was, Chris Godwin out for the season. How do we evaluate that for Dynasty? The Brandon Ayuk out for the season. I'm not dropping him as low as some just because this year is basically a mulligan for me. He was playing terrible even before the injury, but let's not forget 2023 Brandon Ayuk. And then breaking down all those guys that are left behind, the Jalen McMillans, the Ricky Pearsalls, Jauan Jennings, even. And then the one that I thought was really important, and Ray, I imagine you have an interesting opinion on this as well. Okay. So the win now running backs this year are really, really win now.
Yep.
They are really win now. They are. Derrick Henry is not single-handedly winning you weeks, but he is a major part in who the best teams and teams that are at the top of the standings are. So I moved him up to, I think, top 15, top 12 in the Dynasty ratings. And I had a write-up, and it was like, there is no more valuable running back in fantasy football. I know he's 30, but sometimes we just have to make exceptions. And the point is to win, right? So I moved Derrick Henry up significantly and just said, hey, if you're a contender, I'm not afraid to trade future picks. I'm not afraid to do what you got to do to get him on your squad. So that's what you're looking for with the Dynasty ratings update.
Yeah, there's always that balancing act of I'm trying to win in 3 years. Just win now. If you're in, just trade that pick, get Derrick Henry, like you said. So again, balancing act, and we're there. I jump in there sometimes in the Dynasty room just because people ask me questions. Obviously, it's Russell's main purview there. So check it out over at FG. We do have a Dynasty room. Speaking of Dynasty value, these names have come up a lot this year, but let's look out a little bit as well. Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. This is not them. This is Anthony Richardson, right? But Anthony Richardson, last in the league and on throw percentage. We all see it. No growth. He stinks as a passer underneath. Like Pittman and Downs, in theory, but in reality, no. What are we doing with them in Dynasty?
Richardson would have been a great fit in like 2003 to just sit for 3 years.
Yeah,
he's
right.
just. It was not time yet, and he had all those injuries, and he's continued to have injuries, which we've seen time and again. These players and quarterbacks especially, when they're hurt, they're playing, but it's not – something's off. And I feel like Richardson is not the same guy we saw at the beginning of last year. He doesn't even have that explosiveness as a runner right now. So I don't think we're getting the full Richardson. But, yeah, you brought up the point. Even if we get the full Richardson, we're not getting that volume. That volume is toast. So not good for Josh Downs. I'm still holding because even a few weeks ago, we saw the upside with Flacco. But yeah, It's bad. It's real bad.
And I mean, Pittman's getting paid $25 million a year, right? Like, I mean, he's not going anywhere. Same thing holding Pittman. I mean, I think you're at a point with these two guys, and everyone kind of knows it. Like, there's no option. You either hold them or drop them, because you can't trade. Like, if you're going to get a 6th-round pick, like, what are you going to get? You're not getting anything. So I think the advice is probably to hold. But can it turn around for Pittman, who has got the back issue too?
I know, and he's not young anymore either. So you're dealing with a lot of factors that are going to make his dynasty value go down, and season long drop worthy.
I told someone yesterday that he was the drop. Yeah, I felt dirty, but
the guy that had 110, 115 catches last year has trouble getting any targets at all. Pretty amazing, but that's where we are.
Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. Russ, let's go to the chat room a little bit and hit up some questions here. TJ Deal says 12-team PPR, Tank Bigsby or Alvin Kamara if ETN does not play. So at this point, ETN's a game time decision. For the sake of the question, let's assume he's out. Bigsby or Kamara? I mean, to me, it's Kamara, but what do you say?
It's a fair question. I'd go Kamara just based on the rest of the season, but I do think Tank is an RB1 every week. ETN is not in there. So that is something I'm looking at. If ETN's out, we're going to see Bigsby get 20 plus touches, which is at a premium this year. So yeah, really like Tank, but try to find a way. TJ, I know you can do it. Get them both in your lineup. Come on.
I mean, Kamara, even with all the problems in the PPR, he's caught 5 passes each last 4 weeks. He's still involved there. If ETN returns this week or next week, whenever ETN is back, who are these guys in the backfield? Because that's the main question. Some people think it's going to be split. That's kind of me. Some people think it's a Bigsby to the moon. Like, what does it look like when both these guys are healthy in the backfield for the Jags?
Ultimately, it's going to look exactly like what they thought when they drafted Tank Bigsby, which is we're going to give ETN explosive touches out in the open, and Tank Bigsby is going to take care of the rest. This is what they wanted from the beginning. So I think ETN's still going to be the starter, but it's not going to look like last year. And ETN was dead by the end of last year. So I don't know that we want him in that role anyway.
David P. asked a question about Jonathan Brooks. He's hopefully getting closer to a return here from the knee issue. David asks, is he going to make an impact this year? I don't think anything that's happened at this point with Brooks should be surprising. I think some people apparently have been surprised, but this is a very reasonable timeline and everything given when he was coming back from. Yep. Brooks is on waivers. So in general, should Brooks be on waivers in most leagues, Russell? And then secondarily, he's talking about here, he's got Mason and Garendo. I said earlier in the show, I can't drop any of those guys right now because CMC is so uncertain. Do we find a way to get Brooks on our team, though?
So things have played out how we expected with the Panthers, right? We're mid-season. It's completely lost. It's actually worse for them than we could have imagined. So they have a lot of incentive to get all their veterans out of there, continue to lose, and see what they got in the young guys. They have done that with Jatavian Sanders. If you're looking for a bottom of the barrel waiver wire guy, Sanders has gotten some volume at tight end the last couple weeks. The problem is Chuba's playing so well. I did not see that coming, even in the bad circumstances. So when Brooks comes in, I do think he's going to get touches, but it's not going to be as easy to get to that starter role as I thought. So like you mentioned, the Mason and Garendo, I wouldn't be dropping them either. So I'm with you, but Brooks is very talented.
Eric I is in a half-point PPR. He's having trouble with his flex option. If ETN is out, Bigsby, JSN, or Sutton, clearly you're going to say Bigsby based upon your previous statement, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's Bigsby easily. And then JSN, if no Metcalf, then JSN for sure.
But not Sutton and no targets? Like, what is going? I heard on the radio this morning, Bo Nix is a quarterback 1 this week. Are we to that point?
Bo Nix is he started a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that's pretty good.
Right.
Looks pretty spry after the running.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not bad.
By the way, Jack B says that my Niners top looks great. Are you a fan of? This is the old colors. This is one of, I think I was saying earlier, it's one of like 2 Niners things I have. What do you think? No, you don't like, you like the new colors better?
2000s colors were the best.
Oh, okay.
That's
All right.
that's when I came in. They still had the Jeff Garcia. I didn't love the Jeff Garcia era,
Right.
but
Like
those
kind of-
jerseys were my favorite.
Kind of maroonish one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I gotcha. Alejandro V says, need 2, and this is a tough one. Because this is another one of those Kamara, Taylor, if he plays, and it certainly looks like at this point Jonathan Taylor will return this week, and Kareem Hunt. Needs 2 of the 3. The answer is all 3, right? But if you only had to choose 2 of these 3, assuming Taylor is out there, which way are you going, Russell? I feel really good that a lot of people at fantasyguru.com have such great teams, right? Really, because you're taking advantage of people in trades, you're working the waiver wire well. But this kind of question is also very frustrating because there's no reason all 3 of these players shouldn't be active. The Chiefs are in a smash spot on the ground. Taylor has to always be played. He's one of the top running backs. Come on. How do you make the choice?
It would be Kamara and JT, but again, I would force my way into getting Hunt into the flex spot or something because he's been playing so well. They're giving him 20 touches a game. Yeah. There's no running back on that depth chart. Every time they put Carson Steele or anybody else into the game, it is noticeable. And that's not to say Kareem Hunt's the best running back in the league, but the difference between him and everyone else is huge. So that's working in his favor significantly. So get all 3. Alejandro, I believe in you. Get all 3 in there, but I'll pick the first 2.
I love the positivity. Slim Shady. Mr. Kraft with the Packers. Rest of the season, he's trending in the right direction. He's getting in the end zone. It's not a high volume play with the Packers. The Packers have about 9 guys that catch passes every week. That's a little concerning. But Kraft is producing right now. He's a top 5 tight end. Kraft, Henry, or Ertz? Which guy would you choose? Rest of the way is always tough because so many things can change. But if this was your question or this was your dilemma, how would you answer it?
I would pick up Henry and set and forget. He's producing, but he's producing differently because of Drake May and that quarterback change. It's clear Drake May trusts him enough to rely on him as one of the main weapons. They've tried the Jalen Polk thing. That has not worked. They're probably going to continue to try that, but Henry's the only guy in that offense I really trust. And we've seen before he's been able to do this in spurts, but I do think he can sustain this. The Patriots are awful. They're going to be losing just about every game. And yeah, he's going to see 6 to 8 targets the rest of the way. I'm in.
Alejandro, by the way, started Aaron Jones last night. So he had 4 top 15 running backs. So good team, Alejandro. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Belcanto 80. League mates offered me Waddle for Swift. Do you expect Swift to continue to be this productive?
No, but I don't know that I want Waddle. You'll notice whenever you see a trade, someone is offering Waddle nowadays, right? There's not people banging down the door to get Waddle. So with Tua back, I kind of want a week to see. Of course, you might close your window on that trade if so, but I imagine this is because this guy needs running back help. I would look on his roster for another wide receiver. But yeah, the Waddle thing, even with Tua healthy this year, was not good.
Eric S. says, hello, Ray. This is, I guess, before you were on the show, Russell. What are your thoughts on Josh Jacobs for the rest of the year? Borderline running back 1. Thank as always. You do great work. Appreciate you, Eric. Always being involved. I said this previously, and I'll restate it, that I think that Josh Jacobs is basically a running back 1 because it's 18 touches a week. And it's going back to what Russell was saying. There's a handful of guys that are in that zone. Jacobs is one of those guys. It might be 85 yards from scrimmage, and that sucks with 2 catches. There's going to be weeks where he gets in the end zone. There'll be weeks where he catches a few more passes. I think overall saying, is he going to be running back 13 the rest of the way? I'm comfortable with that. It's hard for me to envision him being a top 5 guy, but I think he's a very rock solid every week starter. What are your thoughts, Russell?
So Jacobs was one of those guys who was getting a lot of yardage, but not scoring any touchdowns. Finally got that receiving touchdown last week. If he had a few more touchdowns, I don't think this question would be asked. Jacobs is a guy I would set and forget right now. It just is what it is. You play the variance, you know what his role is, the downside. We've seen the floor in a few games this year, so we know what that is already. But like you said, he's in a featured role, and maybe it's not Derrick Henry breaking off 80-yard runs and getting 25 carries a game, but it's a featured role, and there's probably 10, 12 guys who actually have that role. So value that, set and forget. And again, I try to make this as simple as possible. Thank you. I needed that. Yes. Simple as possible. Set and forget.
I say the perfect way to say it. Set and forget as many decisions each week, because the tinkering is always what gets people. Final question for you, Russell. Brandon Lynch says Terry McLaurin or Khalil Shakir. McLaurin, as Brandon points out, difficult matchup, backup quarterback likely, because we're still getting Jaylen Daniels missing practice. McLaurin or Shakir?
I would go with McLaurin. He looked all right with Mariota last week. Of course, we know the downside of a Mariota-led offense, but this system looks really strong. So I'm going to go with McLaurin. He's been great all year. But yeah, we could go back to this could be a Sam Howell remix version of Scary Terry, but I'm still starting him.
Russell Clay of fantasyguru.com. He joins us every Friday about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, as you've heard about on the show already. He does college football every week. He does Dynasty every week. He's on live streams every week. He's giving advice every week. What do you got the next couple of days here, Russell?
So going to be hopping on the Circa Betting Show with Rob Brink in a few minutes here. We're going to be talking about the picks against the spread the staff made for the Circa contest. Again, a lot of my content's out there. Go our nifty little Week 8 content page. Go check that out, because I got a few things up there. But that is a really easy way to find our content this year. So go to the Week 8 content, I suggest. Today, I have a college football write-up for the DFS main slate on FanDuel tomorrow. So if you guys are into DFS, come hang out in the college football chat. And then I'm not doing any content, but UFC 308 tomorrow. Going to be some great fights. So I'm going to be watching those.
I didn't know you were a UFC guy. Are you someone who goes to the gym and gets beat on or beats people up, or you just like watching?
I rolled once when I was 21.
Really?
And it was not for me, but it did leave a interest in it. You know what I mean? And
so you had a fight. You had a fight when you were 21.
No.
Oh, you went.
I went and rolled.
You actually were in the ring. Oh.
No, Ray. Oh my God. I would have imagined the footage of me just getting taken down.
A grainy photo from the 13th row. Russell Clay.
No. I went to a $20 BJJ session. Okay. That was it. But yeah.
Yeah, we do cover that over at fantasyguru.com.
Yeah.
Check it out. Russell, as always, thanks for joining us today. The listeners, the viewers loved it. I love it. It's great to always get your positivity in here and all that. And the two best looking guys, you and Sean McVay.
Hey.
We may not have Sean back next week, but we'll have you back next week. So have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you then.
All right. Thanks, Ray.
He's Russell Clay. I'm Ray Flowers. Head to fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. Let's go. We'll be back here on Monday on Fantasy Sports Daily, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. For Russ, I'm Ray. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by the one and only fantasyguru.com. Good luck this weekend, folks.